Hello everyone, welcome back to Summer SAT Prep. Today we're tackling Chapter 23, Reading Data from the College Panda Math book. Let's start with the first question here. For 4 work days, Alex plotted the commute time to work and the commute time from work in the grade above. For which of the 4 days was the total commute time to and from the greatest? So we can estimate the total commute time for each point. So let's go with point A first. And here, the time from work is 60, and we can estimate this time to work to be close to 25. So then A is equal to 85. What about B? So B, it kind of seems like here is kind of like 38, and we can estimate this as 40 because it's between 30 and 45. So we get an estimate of 78. C, we can estimate this as 80, and here is 45, so it's 125. And D, we can estimate that this is close to 18, and this is about 80. So the answer is 98. And you can see here that the greatest value that we got is for C, which is 125, so the answer is C. Second question, the graph above shows the voter turnout for each year a congressional election or presidential election was held. In which 2-year period was the difference in voter turnout between the congressional election and the presidential election the smallest? To find the smallest distance, if you look at the graph here, we need to see where the intersection points between 2 of these graphs are the shortest. So if you look at option 8, 1996 and 1998, you see how the distance between these 2 points are quite long, so A cannot be the answer. B, 2000 and 2002, it seems as though 2000 and 2002 are a bit shorter compared to choice A, but this is still not the correct answer because we want the closest possible. And if you look at choice D, we can see how the 2 graphs intersect with very little gaps between the 2 graphs. So because this has the smallest gap between the 2 graphs, between the 4 answer choices, the answer is C. Question 3, according to the line graph above, ice cream sales were highest both in 2013 and 2014 during which 3-month period? So if you want to calculate the highest sales in ice cream, we can look at where the peak is at, right? So if you look here, it kind of seems as though July through September for both years are the highest in ice cream sales, which is roughly around between 1.7 and 1.75 million dollars. So the answer is July to September. The line graph above shows the monthly precipitation in Kathmandu last year. According to the graph, the total precipitation in September was what percentage of the total precipitation in June? So let's look at the first the total precipitation in September, and we can estimate that to be 150. And the total in June is, if you go up here, it should be 250. So to do this, we need to find the percentage, so we can divide the precipitation in September by the precipitation in June, and we can multiply by 100, and we'll be getting 60%, so the answer is C. Let's move on to question 5. Researchers created the graph above to compare the population estimates with the actual population of different cities in 2010. Here we see the 3 cities here. And for which of these cities did the researchers underestimate the population? So this is very easy because we can just look at the graphs, because the shaded region, as the darker shaded region, is the estimated population, and the lighter gray is the actual population. And for the researchers to underestimate the population, the estimated portion must be smaller than the actual portion, right? So the only answer here should be San Diego, which is A. Based on the graph, which of the following best describes the general trend in birth rates in South Korea and Japan in from 2006 to 2014. And if you look at this graph, both seems to decrease, right? It seems to decrease kind of in a linear fashion, and then for South Korea, there's a more rapid linear slope here. But generally, they both are decreasing, right? So if you look at the graphs here and the answer choices, each year birth rate decreased in both South Korea and Japan. This should be the correct answer because B, they don't increase, C, they don't also increase, and in Japan, they also decreased. So the answer is A. Question 7. In a certain study, researchers created the scatter plot above to summarize the age of participants and the number of hours of sleep they required each night. Which of the following is the closest to the age in years of the participant who requires the least amount of sleep each night? So we need to find the lowest point with respect to the y-axis, right? So the lowest point here seems to be here, requiring about 5.5 hours of sleep, which means that this person is of the age of 40. Starting at 9 a.m. each day, Musa picks up packages at various locations until his trailer truck reaches its maximum capacity. He then delivers all the packages that he picked up that day. The graph above shows the weight of his truck at different points during the day. What is the maximum weight the truck can hold in tons? So if you look at here, the minimum weight seems to be at 16. So this must be the weight of the truck when it's empty, right? Because it's not carrying any weight. And the maximum here seems to be at 30. So this is the weight of the truck at its maximum capacity. And to find the maximum capacity without regarding for the truck's weight, we can simply subtract the two. And we'll be getting 14, so the answer is A. Question 9, based on the graph above, from which of the following 2 consecutive years was the percent increase in U.S. annual salt production the same as the percent decrease from 2010 to 2011? So from 2010 to 2011, we can calculate the percent decrease first. You see in 2010, the production was around 40. In 2011, it was 30. So to calculate the percent decrease, you can do 30 minus 40 over 40 times 100. And this will get us negative 25%. So now let's see which one of these answer choices will give us the same increase. So if you look at answer choice 2009 to 2010, it seems like this difference is rather too big. So we can kind of guess that this isn't the answer because the difference between the 2009 and 2010 production is rather too big to be roughly 25%. If you look at 2012 to 2013, however, it seems like this is more appropriate, as well as 2013 to 2014. So let's first calculate 2013 to 2014 to see what we get. So 2014, they produced 25,000 metric tons. In 2013, they produced 20. So to find the percent increase, you do 25 minus 20 over 20 times 100, and we'll be getting 25%. So the answer here is C. According to the graph above, the average mass of a wolf's brain is what fraction of the average mass of a pig's brain? So if we estimate here, this should be 120, 140, 160, 180, right? It's going up by 20 each. So the wolf is around 120. And what about the pig? The pig is 100 is around here. And we're going up by 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's about 180. So to find the fraction, it's just 120 divided by 180, which will get us 2 over 3. So the answer is 2 over 3. Question 11. The graph above shows the number of units sold in 2015 for 5 different video game consoles. The price of the consoles are listed here: 100, 150, 200, 250, and 300. Which of the 5 consoles generated the most total revenue? So if you look at console A, they sold around 250,000 units. So it's 250,000 units multiplied by the price of the console, which is 100, and we'll be getting 2.5 million, 25 million. Let's look at console B. So console B sold around 225. So 225,000 multiplied by 150. And if you put this in a calculator, we'll get 33.75 million. Let's take a look at console C. It seems as though we can kind of disregard console C to E. And the reason is because their units sold are significantly lower than A and B. So therefore, we can just ignore it. But however, if you want to take the safer path, you can kind of calculate it as well. So for C, it's $200, and the unit sold is 100,000. So the answer is 200,000. And for 250, and we have 125 here, we could do the same. So it's 125,000 times 250, which will also get us about 30 million. So the answer here is B. The graph above shows the profit of company X and company Y in each quarter of last year. In which quarter was company X's profit twice company Y's? So let's look at the quarters here. So there's the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter. And here it seems like the quarter one profit for company Y is around around 3, and for company X it's around like 9. So it's definitely not twice, so 1 is incorrect. Let's look at 2 here. 2, it's a bit too close, right? It's between like 4 and 6. So therefore this is not correct as well. If you look at 3, this seems to be around 6, and for company X it seems to be around 12ish. So the answer should be C. Question 13. The graph above shows the healthcare spending of 4 different states. We have Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, and Arkansas in 2013. Based on the graph, which state had the highest combined hospital care and prescription drug spending in 2013? So basically what we have to do is to add the two graphs, two bar charts that we have. So for Alabama, we have 15 and 2.5, which is 7.5 billion. 17.5 billion. And for Alaska, we have 7.5 and 7.5, which we got as 15 billion. Arizona has 12.5 and around 7.5, so that will give us 20 billion. And Arkansas has 10 and 5, which is 15 billion. So the highest, greatest is Arizona with 20 billion, so the answer is C. Okay, let's move on to question 14 here. Jeremy works at a call center. The graph above shows the average number of calls he answered per hour during a 7-hour work shift. What is the total number of calls he answered during his shift? So during his first 2 hours here, he answered 4 calls an hour, right? 4 calls an hour. So it's 4 times 2, which is 8 calls. And then for the next 3 hours, from 2 to 5, he answered 8 calls an hour. So that's a total of 3 times 8, which is 24 calls. And then for the final 2 hours of the call, he answered 6 calls an hour. So that's 2 times 6, which is 12. And now all we have to do is just add up the number of calls that he made. So it's 8 plus 24 plus 12, which will get us 44. So the answer is 44. Greg eats breakfast at 8 a.m. and lunch at 12 p.m. During each meal, doctors record his glucose levels in the graph above until they are able to calculate Greg's glucose recovery time, which is the time it takes for the glucose levels to return to the recorded value at the start of the meal. According to the graph, by how many hours is Greg's glucose recovery time after dinner greater than his glucose recovery time after lunch? So if you look at the graph here, we can see that the Greg's glucose levels, it kind of takes 2.5 hours for it to return to the initial value, which is 140, right? So this is the initial glucose level for Greg. And if you look at after breakfast, it takes around 2.5 hours, right? 2.5 hours. And after dinner, which should be around here, it returns to the initial value by 8 minus 4, right? So here and here. So 8 minus 4 is 4. So it takes 4 hours again to return to the initial value after dinner. Because dinner starts at here, where the initial value is at, and it ends at the initial value again, which is at 8 hours after 8 a.m. So for dinner it takes 4 hours, and for breakfast it takes 2.5 hours. And to find the difference and to find how much greater the glucose recovery time at dinner is after lunch, then all we have to do is just 4 minus 2.5. So we subtract the two values that we found to get 1.5. So the answer is A. Okay. Let's move on to the last question of the day. The graph above shows the gas mileage for car X at different speeds. Based on the graph, how many gallons of gas are needed to drive car X for 5 hours at a constant speed of 30 miles per hour? So 30 miles per hour. So if you look at the graph here, 30 miles per hour equates to around 25 miles per gallon. So at 30 miles per hour, the car can get 25 miles per gallon. So to drive it for 5 hours, the total distance that it's covering is 5 times 30, right? Which is 150 miles. So to calculate the number of gallons of gas that are needed, we have to do 150 times by 150 miles times by the rate of the gallon, which is 1 gallon per 25 miles. And now we can cancel out the miles to get 6 gallons, because it's 150 times 1 over 25, so the answer is 6. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next chapter.